My name is Sarah Michelle Thompson, and I'm 32 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened 3 months ago, but it feels like yesterday. The words still echo in my head, cutting deeper each time I remember them. You're just bitter because Emily succeeded. That's what my mother hissed across the mahogany dinner table at our monthly family gathering. Her voice was sharp, calculated, designed to wound. But what came out of my mouth next surprised everyone, including myself. Then tell her to return the $63,000 I gave you since college. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Dad dropped his spoon, the metallic clatter against his plate the only sound in our suddenly frozen dining room. My sister Emily's face went white as fresh snow. Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. But let me back up. Because this story, this betrayal, it didn't start that night. It started years ago, with a little girl who just wanted her family to love her as much as they loved her perfect sister. If you've ever felt like the forgotten child in your family, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories like this one. Trust me, you won't believe where this goes. Growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, I always felt like I was living in Emily's shadow. She was 2 years younger but somehow always seemed more accomplished, more beloved, more everything. While I struggled through school with undiagnosed ADHD, Emily breezed through with straight A's. When I played JV soccer, Emily made varsity as a sophomore. When I got into a decent state school, Emily received a full scholarship to Northwestern. Don't get me wrong, I loved my sister. But loving someone and feeling inadequate compared to them can coexist in the messiest, most painful ways. After college, I worked my way up from an entry-level position at a marketing firm to becoming a senior account manager. It wasn't glamorous, but I was proud of my steady climb. I lived modestly, saved religiously, and slowly built what I thought was a secure future. Emily, on the other hand, seemed to float through life on a cloud of opportunities. After Northwestern, she moved to New York to pursue her dreams in fashion design. This was where the first requests for money began. "Sarah, honey," Mom would call, her voice taking on that special tone she reserved for asking favors. "Emily's having a tough time getting established. You know how expensive New York is. Could you help out? Just this once?" The first check was for $500. Just for groceries and utilities, Mom promised. Then it was $1,200 for Emily's portfolio development. Then $2,000 for a sewing machine and materials. Each time, Mom assured me it was temporary, that Emily was on the verge of a breakthrough. "She's so talented, Sarah. She just needs a little boost to get started." I wanted to believe in my sister's dreams. More than that, I wanted to be part of them. Maybe if I helped Emily succeed, I'd finally earn the place in my family that seemed reserved for her alone. The requests became routine. Mom would call every few months with a new crisis. Emily's rent was due. Emily needed money for a fashion show entry fee. Emily's laptop broke. Emily. I kept a detailed record of every payment in a small notebook, not because I didn't trust them, but because I'm methodical about finances. It's the accountant in me. By the time that fateful dinner arrived, the total had reached $63,247. But here's what I didn't know. Emily had been telling everyone, our parents, our extended family, her friends, that she was entirely self-made. That she'd built her fashion design business from nothing, with no help from anyone. 3 months ago, at my cousin's wedding, I overheard a conversation that shattered my world. "Emily's so inspiring," my aunt was saying to a group of relatives. "Building that whole company by herself, never asking for help. Not like some people who always have their hands out." The "some people" comment was directed at me, because I'd recently asked my parents to help with a down payment on a house, something I'd been saving for but was still short on due to all the money I'd lent Emily. That's when my cousin Jennifer chimed in, "Oh, Emily was telling us all about it at Christmas. How she's completely independent, how she's never borrowed a penny from family. She said she couldn't understand people who can't make it on their own." The champagne glass in my hand felt suddenly heavy. Emily had been taking my money for 3 years while simultaneously painting herself as the self-sufficient sister and me as the failure who needed family handouts. I made it through the wedding somehow, smiling and nodding and pretending my heart wasn't breaking. But that night, I called Mom. "Is it true that Emily told everyone she never received help from the family?" I asked. There was a pause. Too long of a pause. "Well, sweetie, she probably just meant she never asked Dad and me directly. Mom, I've given her over $60,000 through you." $60,000. How is that being self-made? Now Sarah, don't be dramatic. Emily's just trying to protect her professional image. You wouldn't understand the pressures she's under. That conversation planted a seed of something dark and cold in my chest. For weeks, it grew as I replayed every family gathering, every comment about Emily's success, every subtle comparison that made me feel small. Which brings us back to that dinner 3 months ago. We were celebrating Emily's latest achievement, her fashion line being picked up by a boutique chain. She'd flown in from New York, glowing with success and confidence. Throughout dinner, she regaled us with stories of her independent journey and bootstrap mentality. "I'm just so proud that I did it all myself," she said, raising her wine glass. "It feels so much better knowing I didn't have to depend on anyone else." That's when something inside me snapped. "That's interesting," I said, my voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions building inside me. "Because I have records of every payment I've made to support your independent journey." Emily's smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" "The money, Emily. All the money I've been giving Mom to give to you for the past 3 years." The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly. "I don't know what you mean. I've never asked you for money." And that's when Mom jumped in, her voice sharp with that familiar edge. "You're just bitter because Emily succeeded." The words hit me like a physical blow. After everything I'd given, after all the sacrifices I'd made, this was how they saw me? Bitter? Jealous? That's when I said it, "Then tell her to return the $63,000 I gave you since college." The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Dad's spoon had clattered to his plate. My mother's face cycled through shock, anger, and something that might have been shame. Emily stared at me with wide eyes, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Finally, Emily found her voice. "Sarah, I can explain." But I was already standing up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "No," I said quietly. "I don't think you can." I walked out that night with my head held high, but inside, I was crumbling. Because the worst part wasn't losing the money. It wasn't even the lies. The worst part was realizing that the family I'd been trying so hard to belong to had been using me all along. and they'd convinced themselves, and everyone else, that I was the problem. But what happened next? What I discovered about my family's web of lies went so much deeper than I ever imagined. The drive home from my parents' house that night felt endless. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I replayed the dinner conversation over and over. The looks on their faces. The silence. The way Emily had stared at me like I'd just burned down her entire world. Maybe I had. When I got to my apartment, I did something I'd never done before. I opened a bottle of wine and drank it alone while staring at my financial records. Every payment, every date, every desperate phone call from Mom was documented in my careful handwriting. June 2021, $500. Emily needs groceries. August 2021, $1,200. Portfolio development. October 2021, $2,000. Sewing equipment. December 2021, $1,500. Rent emergency. The list went on, a paper trail of my naive generosity and my family's systematic manipulation. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Sarah, we need to talk." "I'm coming over." I almost said no. Almost. But part of me, the part that still loved my little sister despite everything, wanted to hear what she had to say. Emily arrived at noon, looking nothing like the confident fashion designer from the night before. Her hair was messy, her eyes red-rimmed. She looked young and scared, like the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. "Sarah," she said, standing awkwardly in my living room doorway. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I gestured to the couch, but I didn't sit down myself. I needed the distance, needed to feel in control of something. "Which part are you sorry for?" I asked. Taking my money? Lying about it? Or letting everyone think I was the family failure while you played the success story? Emily's face crumpled. "All of it. I know how it looks, but it wasn't supposed to happen like this." How was it supposed to happen? She twisted her hands in her lap, a nervous habit from childhood. "At first, Mom said you offered to help. She said you wanted to be part of my success, that you believed in me. I thought it was just sister support." "When did you know?" "Know what?" "When did you know that I thought I was lending you money? That I expected to be paid back? That I had no idea you were telling everyone you were self-made?" The silence stretched between us. Emily's face told me everything I needed to know. "You knew from the beginning," I said quietly. "Not from the beginning," she whispered. "But, yes. I knew." The admission hit me like a physical blow. I sat down heavily in my armchair, suddenly feeling decades older than my 32 years. "Why?" I asked. "Why did you let me think we were in this together?" Emily's tears started flowing freely now. "Because I was scared. Do you know what it's like being compared to you my whole life?" I stared at her in shock. "Compared to me?" "Emily, you're the golden child. You always have been." "Are you kidding?" She looked up at me with genuine surprise. "Sarah, you were always the responsible one. The reliable one. Mom and Dad never worried about you because they knew you'd figure it out. You'd get good grades, get a good job, make smart decisions. I was just the dreamy kid who wanted to play with fabric. I felt like I was living in an alternate universe. They worried about me constantly. They still do. Every family gathering is a reminder of how I haven't measured up to you. That's not how I saw it. We sat in silence for a moment, both processing this collision of perspectives. Even if that's true, I said finally, it doesn't explain the lying. It doesn't explain letting me pay for your dreams while taking credit for achieving them alone. Emily nodded miserably. You're right. Once I started succeeding, once people started noticing my work, I got caught up in the story. The self-made designer narrative was so much better than girl whose sister funded her dreams. It felt more legitimate. More legitimate. I repeated the words, tasting their bitterness. I know how that sounds. I know how horrible that is. But Sarah, you have to understand, in fashion, in New York, image is everything. If people knew I had family support, they'd dismiss everything I've accomplished. So you threw me under the bus instead. I never meant for it to go that far. I kept telling myself I'd pay you back once I really made it. Once the business was stable. But then Mom started asking for help with your house down payment, and I heard what people were saying about you always needing help. And you didn't correct them. No. Her voice was barely a whisper. I didn't correct them. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. The same city where we'd grown up, where I'd worked and saved and scraped together every dollar I'd given her. Emily, I need you to understand something. That money wasn't just sitting in a bank account waiting to be donated to your dreams. I worked overtime for it. I ate ramen for weeks to save it. I postponed buying a house, getting a new car, taking vacations. I sacrificed my own life to invest in yours. When I turned around, she was sobbing into her hands. I know, she choked out. I know, and I hate myself for it. Hating yourself doesn't fix this. She looked up at me, mascara streaking down her cheeks. What can I do? Tell me what I can do to fix this. The question hung in the air between us. What could she do? Give me back 3 years of my life? Return the opportunities I'd missed while funding hers? Undo the humiliation of being seen as the family failure? I don't know if you can fix this, Emily. But you can start by telling the truth. What do you mean? I mean you need to tell everyone the truth about how your business got started. Mom, Dad, all the relatives who heard your self-made story. Your friends in New York. Your business contacts if necessary. Her face went white. Sarah, you don't understand. If I do that, it could ruin everything I've built. Everything you've built was built on a lie. Built with my money and at my expense. But my clients, my reputation. What about my reputation? What about the fact that our entire extended family thinks I'm a failure who can't make it without handouts? Emily was quiet for a long time, processing what I was asking. Finally, she looked up at me with something that might have been resolve. You're right, she said. You're absolutely right. I'll tell them. I'll tell everyone. Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by suspicion. It felt too easy, too quick. When? I asked. Soon. I need time to figure out how to say it. Emily. I promise, Sarah. I will make this right." But even as she said the words, something in her eyes made me doubt her. And I was right to doubt, because what I discovered the next week proved that Emily's promises were as worthless as her previous lies. It started with a phone call from my cousin Jennifer. "Sarah," she said, her voice tight with anger. "I just got off the phone with Emily. She told me the most ridiculous story about how you're trying to sabotage her business by spreading lies about giving her money. She said you're having some kind of breakdown and making up these crazy stories to get attention." My blood turned to ice. "She said what?" "She was crying, Sarah. Really crying. She said you've always been jealous of her success and now you're trying to destroy it. She showed me text messages where you were supposedly harassing her for money and threatening to ruin her reputation if she didn't pay you." I could barely breathe. "Jennifer, those text messages." "I know they're fake," Jennifer interrupted. "I know you, Sarah. But the fact that she would go this far, that she would create fake evidence to make you look unstable. I thought you should know what she's doing." After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at the phone. Emily hadn't just broken her promise to tell the truth. She'd weaponized our conversation, turned it into ammunition to paint me as the villain in her victim's story. But what Jennifer said next when she called back an hour later was what really broke me. "Sarah, there's something else." I did some digging after Emily's call bothered me. I called around to some of our other cousins, asked some careful questions about Emily's business. And? She's not as successful as she's been telling everyone. That boutique chain that supposedly picked up her line? They dropped her 2 months ago. The fashion shows she's been talking about? Most of them never happened. I think she's been lying about her success too, not just about the family money. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the kitchen counter. Emily hadn't just stolen my money and my reputation. She'd built her entire identity on lies, and now those lies were crumbling. Which meant she was about to get desperate. And desperate people do dangerous things. I had no idea how dangerous until I checked my email the next morning. The email was waiting for me when I woke up at 6 a.m., marked urgent and sent from an address I didn't recognize, Legal Advocates LLC at lawfirm.com. Ms. Thompson. We represent Ms. Emily Thompson in a matter concerning defamatory statements you have allegedly made regarding her business and personal finances. We demand that you cease and desist from making false claims about our client's financial history and business practices immediately. If you continue to spread these malicious lies, we will be forced to pursue legal action for damages to our client's reputation in business. Please respond within 48 hours to confirm your compliance. Sincerely, Robert Chin, ESQ. My coffee mug shattered against the kitchen floor. Emily had hired a lawyer. She was threatening to sue me for telling the truth about the money I'd given her. The sister who had crawled into my bed during thunderstorms, who I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd loved and supported for 30 years, was now trying to legally silence me. My hands shook as I called in sick to work. I needed time to think, to figure out how to respond to this nightmare that kept spiraling deeper. But first, I needed to verify something. I called the law firm directly. Legal Advocates LLC, this is Marina speaking. Hi, I received an email from Robert Chin regarding Emily Thompson. I wanted to verify that this came from your firm. There was a pause. I'm sorry, but we don't have anyone by that name working here. And I don't see any Emily Thompson in our client database. Can you forward me that email? My heart started pounding. The law firm was real, but the lawyer wasn't. Emily had sent me a fake legal threat. I spent the next 2 hours on the phone. First with a real lawyer, my college roommate's husband who practiced family law. Then with my parents, who claimed they had no idea Emily was taking things this far. Then with Jennifer, who was as shocked as I was. Sarah, Jennifer said over lunch that day, "This is getting scary. Emily's not just lying anymore. She's actively trying to destroy you." I pushed my salad around my plate, my appetite gone. I keep thinking about when we were kids. She was never like this. Competitive, sure. But not malicious. People change when they're desperate. And from what I've found out, she's very desperate. Jennifer had done more digging since our phone call. What she discovered painted a picture of Emily's life that was completely different from the successful designer image she'd been projecting. The boutique chain hadn't just dropped her line, they demanded a refund for defective products. The fashion shows she'd been posting about on social media were mostly amateur events that charged designers to participate. Her flagship store in New York was actually a shared workspace where she rented a corner by the day. She's been living paycheck to paycheck, Jennifer explained. Using credit cards to fund her lifestyle and maintain the illusion of success. The money you gave her wasn't just helping her business, it was keeping her afloat. So when I threatened to expose the truth, you threatened her entire house of cards. That evening, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I drove to Emily's hotel. She was staying at a mid-tier place near the airport, not the luxury downtown hotel she'd mentioned to the family. I found her in the hotel bar, nursing a glass of wine and staring at her laptop screen. She looked exhausted, older than her 28 years. When she saw me, her face cycled through surprise, fear, and finally resignation. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi." I sat down across from her. "We need to talk about the fake legal threat." Her face went red. "I don't know what you mean." I slid my phone across the table, showing her the email I'd received from the law firm confirming that Robertson didn't exist. "Emily, this has gone too far." She closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair, suddenly looking very small. "I was scared. You were going to ruin everything." Everything was already ruined. It was built on lies. "You don't understand," she said, her voice rising. "You have a stable job, a steady life. You can afford to tell the truth because you have something to fall back on. I have nothing. My business is failing. I'm $40,000 in debt on credit cards. If the fashion world finds out I lied about being self-made, I'll never work again." The raw honesty in her voice caught me off guard. This was the first time since the dinner that Emily had told me the complete truth about anything. "So your solution was to destroy my reputation instead?" I panicked. "I thought if I could make you look unstable, people would dismiss whatever you said. I thought I could buy time to figure something else out." I studied my sister's face. The polished facade was completely gone now, replaced by someone who looked lost and desperate. "Emily, do you understand that what you've been doing to me isn't just lying? It's financial abuse. It's character assassination. It's..." "I know." She slammed her hand on the table, making other patrons turn to look. I know exactly what it is, okay? I know I'm a terrible person. I know I've destroyed our relationship. I know I've hurt you in ways I can't fix. Tears were streaming down her face now, but I felt strangely calm. For the first time in 3 months, I was seeing the real Emily, not the successful designer, not the victim, just my scared little sister who had gotten in way over her head. Then why do you keep doing it? Because I don't know how to stop. Every lie requires another lie to cover it up. Every success story requires bigger successes to maintain it. I started this 3 years ago thinking I'd pay you back quickly and everything would work out. But the business never took off the way I thought it would, and the lies kept getting bigger, and now? And now? She looked at me with eyes full of fear. And now I think I might lose everything anyway. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 3 years of deception hanging between us. Emily, I said finally, I want to help you. But I can't help you build more lies. And I can't pretend this didn't happen. What do you want me to do? I want you to come clean. To everyone. Our parents, our extended family, your business contacts if necessary. I want you to acknowledge that you took my money and lied about it. And if I do that, then we can start rebuilding. Not our old relationship, that's gone. But maybe something new. Something honest. Emily was quiet for a long time, staring into her wine glass. There's something else, she said finally. My heart sank. What else? The money you gave me, it's gone. All of it. Not just spent on business expenses, gone. I used it to pay off credit card debt, to maintain my lifestyle, to keep up appearances. I don't have any way to pay you back. The words hit me like a physical blow, even though part of me had suspected this was the case. All of it? All of it. I sat back in my chair, processing this final betrayal. Not only had Emily stolen my money and destroyed my reputation, she'd squandered everything I'd sacrificed for her. Sarah, she said urgently, reaching across the table toward me. Please say something. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. The designer clothes that I now realized were probably knockoffs. The expensive manicure that had bitten nails underneath. The confident facade that barely contained a scared, lost young woman. I need time, I said, standing up. I need time to process all of this. How much time? I don't know. I walked away from that table feeling strangely empty. Not angry anymore, not sad, just hollow. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that when I finally put it down, I couldn't remember what my life felt like without the weight. But as I drove home, I had no idea that Emily was about to make one final, desperate play that would force me to confront not just her betrayals, but the entire toxic dynamic of our family. The call came at 2 a.m. The phone rang at 2:17 a.m., jarring me awake from the first peaceful sleep I'd had in months. Mom's name flashed on the caller ID. Sarah, thank God you answered. Her voice was panicked, breathless. It's Emily. She's in the hospital. My heart stopped. What happened? She took some pills. Not enough to, but the doctors want to keep her for observation. She's asking for you. I was dressed and driving to the hospital before I fully processed what Mom had said. Emily had tried to hurt herself. My little sister, the one I'd been so angry with, had been in so much pain that she'd seen no other way out. The ICU was harsh under fluorescent lights. Emily looked small and fragile in the hospital bed, four tubes snaking from her arms. Her eyes were closed, but she wasn't sleeping. I could tell by the tension in her shoulders, a tell from childhood. "Em?" I said softly. Her eyes opened, focusing on me with difficulty. "Sarah. You came." Of course I came. Mom and Dad were there too, standing awkwardly by the window. Dad's face was drawn and gray. Mom looked like she'd aged 10 years in one night. "The doctors say she's going to be fine," Mom whispered to me. "Physically fine. But Sarah, she told us everything. About the money, about the lies, about the fake lawyer. Everything." I looked back at Emily, who was watching our conversation with exhausted eyes. "Why now?" I asked her. "Why tell them now?" Emily's voice was hoarse when she answered. "Because lying was killing me. Literally killing me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every phone call, every family gathering, every business meeting was just another performance. I was drowning in my own lies." She struggled to sit up a little, and I found myself automatically adjusting her pillows, a sister's instinct that survived even our worst betrayals. After you left the hotel bar, I went back to my room and looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. And I realized I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. I'd become someone who would destroy her own sister to save a fake reputation. Someone who would create fake legal documents and spread lies about the person who'd sacrificed everything for her dreams. Her voice broke. I'd become someone I hated. The four of us sat in the hospital room's sterile quiet, years of dysfunction and pain finally exposed in the harsh light. "Sarah," Dad spoke for the first time since I'd arrived. "I owe you an apology." "We all do." I turned to look at him, surprised. "Your mother and I, we enabled this. We saw how Emily was struggling and how generous you were being, and we convinced ourselves we were helping both of our daughters. But we were really just taking the easy path, letting Emily avoid responsibility while taking advantage of your kind heart." "David," Mom started to protest, but he held up a hand. "No, Linda. We need to say this. Sarah, we failed you. We failed both of our daughters, but we especially failed you. We let Emily's needs overshadow your sacrifices. We let the family narrative become successful Emily and struggling Sarah when the truth was the exact opposite." I felt tears starting, but for the first time in months, they weren't tears of anger or frustration. "I just wanted to belong," I said quietly. "I wanted to be part of something important." "You were," Emily whispered from the bed. "My business, everything I built, it was all because of you." I was too scared and too proud to admit it. Over the next several hours, as Emily recovered and we waited for the psychiatrist to clear her for discharge, we had the most honest conversation our family had ever had. Mom admitted that she'd always favored Emily because she reminded her of herself, artistic, impractical, in need of protection. Dad confessed that he'd relied on me to be the easy child because Emily required so much attention and management. "It wasn't fair to you," Mom said, her voice thick with tears. We made you grow up too fast and then took that maturity for granted. Emily talked about the pressure of living up to the talented label, how it had made her feel like a fraud whenever she struggled with basic adult responsibilities. The lies had started as a way to maintain the image everyone expected of her, but they'd grown into a prison. "I know I can't undo what I did," she said to me. "I know saying sorry doesn't give you back your money or repair your reputation. But I want you to know that everything I accomplished was because you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." "Then why did you throw me under the bus?" "Because I was ashamed. Every success felt hollow because I knew it wasn't really mine. Instead of dealing with that shame honestly, I tried to rewrite history. Make the success feel legitimate by erasing your role in it." It was brutal honesty, but it was honest. The psychiatrist who evaluated Emily recommended intensive therapy and was concerned about the level of anxiety and depression that had led to her overdose. She suggested family counseling as well. "Toxic family dynamics don't usually involve just one person," she explained to us. "They're systems that everyone participates in, usually unconsciously." That was 6 weeks ago. Emily moved back to Chicago and started working with a therapist 3 times a week. She also enrolled in a financial literacy course and got a part-time job at a local boutique while she figured out her next steps. Most importantly, she began the long process of telling the truth. She called every family member who'd heard her self-made story and admitted to the lies. She posted on social media acknowledging that her business had been funded by family support. She even reached out to some of her New York contacts to correct the record. It was humbling and painful, but she did it. "I can't give you back the money," she told me last week. "Not yet. But I can give you back your reputation and your rightful place in this family." Mom and Dad are in therapy too, learning about favoritism and how their well-intentioned actions had created a toxic dynamic between their daughters. Dad actually cried during one session when he realized how much pressure he'd put on me to be the responsible one while excusing Emily's irresponsibility. As for me, I'm learning to set boundaries. Real ones. I love my family, but I'm no longer willing to sacrifice my financial security or emotional well-being to enable their dysfunction. Emily and I meet for coffee once a week now. Our conversations are different, more careful, more honest, sometimes more difficult. We're building a new relationship from the ground up, one that acknowledges the damage that was done while working toward genuine healing. She's paying me back in $50 monthly installments, all she can afford from her boutique job. At this rate, it will take over 100 years to repay the full amount, which we both acknowledge is impossible. But it's not really about the money anymore. It's about Emily taking responsibility and me learning to accept help in the form of acknowledgement rather than promises. Last month, at our cousin's baby shower, something beautiful happened. Emily was talking to a group of relatives about her current job at the boutique, and someone asked about her fashion business. "That didn't work out the way I'd hoped," she said simply. "I had family support that I wasn't honest about, and I made some poor business decisions. I'm taking time to figure out what I really want to do with my life." Then she looked at me across the room and said, "My sister Sarah was incredibly generous in supporting my dreams. I wasn't mature enough to handle that support well, but I'm grateful every day that I have a sister who believed in me." It was a small moment, but it felt like everything. The other day, I put a down payment on a house. Not the house I'd originally planned, that dream had been funded with money I'd given to Emily. But a smaller, perfectly adequate house that I can afford on my own income. Emily came to the closing with me. "I'm sorry this isn't the house you originally wanted," she said as we stood in the empty living room. "Actually," I realized as I said it, "this is better. This house is completely mine. No one can take it away or claim they helped me get it. It's mine because I earned it." She smiled sadly. "I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of us," I said. "For doing the hard work. For telling the truth. For not giving up on each other. We're not the sisters we used to be." That relationship, built on unspoken expectations and unhealthy dynamics, is gone forever. But maybe we're becoming something better, two adults who love each other enough to be honest about their flaws and willing to do the work to heal. Our family dinner last Sunday was different too. Mom complimented my new position at work, a promotion I'd earned while dealing with all the Emily drama. Dad asked about my house hunting process and offered to help with minor repairs, which was the first time he'd acknowledged that I might need support too. Emily talked about her therapy progress and her plans to eventually return to fashion design, but this time with realistic expectations and honest funding sources. "I want to save up enough money to take some evening classes," she said. "Maybe in 2 or 3 years, I can start a small line. But I want to do it right this time. No lies, no pretending, no taking advantage of family." The conversation flowed naturally, without the undercurrent of tension that had poisoned our family gatherings for years. We talked about real things, struggles at work, therapy insights, small victories, and daily challenges. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of awkwardness, still wounds that haven't fully healed. But it was honest in a way our family had never been before. 3 months after Emily's hospitalization, I received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from one of the fashion contacts in New York who Emily had told the truth to, a woman named Rebecca who ran a small design studio. "Dear Sarah, I hope you don't mind me reaching out. Your sister Emily gave me your contact information and permission to write to you. I wanted you to know that Emily's honesty about her business funding and the mistakes she made has been both rare and refreshing in our industry. Most people try to hide their failures and fabricate their successes. Emily's willingness to admit her mistakes and acknowledge your support shows real character. I don't know if you're interested in fashion at all, but if you ever want to visit New York, I'd love to show you around our studio. Your sister speaks of you with such gratitude and respect. It's clear that your belief in her dreams was the foundation of everything she accomplished, even when she wasn't mature enough to acknowledge it properly. Thank you for supporting another woman's dreams, even when it cost you personally. Best regards. Rebecca Martinez." I cried reading that letter. Not tears of sadness or anger, but tears of recognition. For the first time, someone outside our family was acknowledging my role in Emily's journey, not as the bitter sister, not as the family failure, but as someone who had sacrificed for love and deserved credit for that sacrifice. I called Emily and read her the letter. "I asked her to write to you," Emily said. "I know it doesn't fix everything, but I wanted someone in my professional world to understand who you really are. What you really did for me. Thank you," I said, and meant it. Last week, Emily and I took a trip together, the first time we'd traveled anywhere as adults. Just a weekend in Milwaukee, visiting art museums and talking. On the drive home, she brought up something that had been bothering her. "Sarah, do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me? Really forgive me?" I thought about it for a long time before answering. I think I already have, I said finally. Not because you've earned it or because everything's fixed, but because holding on to that anger was poisoning me. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what you did. It's about freeing myself from carrying that pain around. But do you trust me? Not yet, I said honestly. Trust has to be rebuilt through actions over time. But I love you, and I believe you're genuinely trying to change. That's enough for now. She nodded, accepting the honesty even though it wasn't what she'd hoped to hear. I'll earn it back, she said. However long it takes. Today marks exactly 4 months since that explosive family dinner. I'm writing this story because I know there are others out there who've experienced similar betrayals, from family members, friends, or partners who took advantage of their generosity and love. If you're reading this and seeing yourself in my story, I want you to know several things. Your generosity was not naive. Your love was not foolish. The person who betrayed you made choices that reflected their character, not yours. It's okay to love someone and still set firm boundaries with them. It's okay to forgive someone without trusting them immediately. It's okay to rebuild a relationship on new terms rather than trying to recreate what existed before. Healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't matter. Healing means learning to carry the experience without letting it define you or destroy your capacity for love and trust in the future. Emily and I will probably never have the relationship we had before. That relationship was built on unhealthy dynamics that needed to be destroyed. But we might have something better, a relationship built on truth, respect, and genuine understanding of each other's flaws and strengths. The money may never be fully repaid, but something more valuable has been restored, my sense of self-worth and my rightful place in my family's story. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to a toxic relationship is for it to be completely destroyed so that something healthier can grow in its place. And sometimes, the sister who betrays you can become the sister who teaches you the most about forgiveness, boundaries, and the difference between enabling and loving. Have you ever experienced betrayal like this from someone you trusted and supported? Have you struggled with toxic family dynamics that made you question your own worth? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Sometimes sharing our experiences helps others feel less alone in their pain and their healing. Remember, you are worthy of honesty, respect, and relationships that honor your sacrifices. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.